Imagine standing on the pulpit, Bible in hand, with the crowd hanging on your every word, yet inside your soul is chained by a secret sin. That was me. Every sermon was a performance, every smile a disguise. I thought I was in control, that no one could see the war raging within. But one Sunday, in the middle of preaching, everything changed. My strength failed, my mask cracked, and I was confronted, not by man, but by God himself. What happened next shattered me completely, and it's a warning I can never forget. I was 38 years old, a husband, a father, and a pastor of a growing congregation. To anyone looking from the outside, my life was perfect. The church was expanding, my sermons stirred people's hearts, and I was seen as a man of God. People admired me, and some even envied me. But behind the pulpit, I was not the man they thought I was. From my youth, lust had been my constant enemy. I thought marriage would cure it, but it didn't. I thought ministry would bury it, but it only made the battle fiercer. Every Sunday, I stood with a Bible in my hand, but with chains wrapped around my soul. I preached about holiness, yet deep inside, I felt unworthy of the very words coming out of my mouth. The hardest part wasn't the sin itself, it was the mask. Smiling, shaking hands, praying for people, while secretly feeling like a hypocrite. I lived with the haunting thought, what if I die like this? What if my secret is revealed in the presence of God? I didn't know that the answer to that fear would come sooner than I expected, in the most terrifying way imaginable. That Sunday morning began like any other. I woke up, put on my suit, and prepared to preach. My wife noticed I was quieter than usual, but I brushed it off, telling her I was just meditating. The truth was, I had barely slept the night before. Guilt had been gnawing at me like a wild animal, whispering that my time was running out. My heart felt heavy, my mind clouded, but still, I walked into the church, Bible in hand, ready to perform yet again. The sanctuary was full. The choir sang, people clapped, the atmosphere felt alive. As I sat in my chair on the platform, I looked across the sea of faces, men, women, young people, all expecting to hear a word from God. And yet, in my soul, I felt hollow. My chest tightened as I whispered to myself, Lord, help me, just help me get through today. When it was time, I rose to my feet. My legs felt heavier than usual, but I pressed forward. I opened my Bible, cleared my throat, and began to preach. The words flowed, polished and powerful, but they felt like ash in my mouth. I knew how to stir emotions, I knew how to move a crowd, but I also knew I was a hypocrite standing on borrowed time. 10 minutes into the sermon, I felt an unusual wave wash over me. At first, it was subtle. My heart began to race faster than normal. Then came the dizziness, like the entire room was spinning. My hands trembled slightly as I gripped the pulpit to steady myself. Sweat rolled down my forehead, but the air conditioner was blowing cold. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. I tried to ignore it, to push through, but the harder I forced myself, the weaker I became. My vision blurred. The faces in the congregation started to look distant, like I was viewing them through a tunnel. A buzzing sound filled my ears, drowning out my own voice. Panic set in, but I couldn't show it. A pastor collapsing in the middle of a sermon. No, I thought, I have to keep going. But my body betrayed me. My knees buckled. I stumbled, clutching the pulpit with all my strength. Gasps erupted from the front rows. As people noticed I was struggling, a few rushed forward, but before they could reach me, my legs gave way completely. My body hit the ground with a thud. In that moment, everything went silent. I could no longer hear the cries of my congregation. I could no longer feel the cold floor beneath me. My chest seized with a sharp pain, then loosened, as if my heart had given up. I gasped for air, but there was none. Darkness swallowed me whole. Then, in an instant, I realized I was no longer inside my body. I could see myself lying on the ground, people surrounding me, my wife screaming, ushers fanning me, someone shouting for an ambulance. Yet I felt no pain, no weight, no weakness. Instead, a chilling awareness gripped me. I had crossed over. Fear shot through me, like lightning. I thought I had years left, time to repent, time to overcome my secret sins. But there I was, standing outside my own body, watching the life I once controlled slip out of my hands. My first instinct was to pray, but no words came out. It was as if my chance to pray had ended the moment my heart stopped. My voice, my lips, my tongue, all powerless. All I could do was watch as eternity unfolded before me. And then, the atmosphere around me changed. The church walls seemed to dissolve. The cries of the congregation faded. I was being pulled, slowly at first, then faster, into a realm beyond anything I had ever known. A tunnel stretched out before me, filled with a heavy darkness that pressed against my soul. I wanted to resist, to fight, to run, but I couldn't. Something greater than me had taken control. And in that moment, I knew my secret sin had found me out. The pull grew stronger, dragging me through that endless tunnel of darkness. My heart, if I even still had one, pounded with terror. The silence was suffocating, broken only by the sound of my own thoughts screaming inside me. I wanted to cry out, to plead for mercy, but no voice would come. It was as though my tongue had been chained. Suddenly, the tunnel opened into a vast expanse. The air was thick, heavy, and smelled of sulfur. I looked around and realized I was standing on the edge of a barren land, desolate, scorched, and without hope. Shadows moved in the distance, twisted figures writhing in pain. A dreadful cry echoed, a mixture of anger and despair that pierced my very being. At that moment, I knew exactly where I was. This was not heaven, this was not peace. I was standing at the threshold of hell. The ground beneath me shook violently. Flames burst forth, illuminating faces contorted in agony. Their eyes locked onto me, and I felt their torment pull at my soul. I tried to step back, but invisible chains bound me in place. My heart screamed, "Lord, please, not here, not me." Then I heard a voice, not from the shadows but from above. It was thunderous, yet sorrowful. It said, "You preached my word but you did not live it. You carried my name, but your heart was far from me." The words pierced deeper than any blade could. Every hidden sin I had ignored, every lustful thought I entertained, every secret I justified, it all flashed before me like a film playing too fast to stop. I saw myself late at night, scrolling through images I shouldn't have seen. I saw moments when I lingered too long on women with my eyes, when I let imagination drift where holiness should have guarded me. I saw how I stood on the pulpit, warning others of sin while drowning in my own. The hypocrisy stung like fire. The figures in the flames began to reach toward me, their cries growing louder. "Join us," they wailed. "You knew the truth, yet you chose the lie. There is no escape." The heat grew unbearable, searing into me though I wasn't in a physical body. I could feel their torment, as if their pain was pressing into my soul. I wanted to argue, to defend myself. But Lord, I loved you. I preached your word. I prayed for people. But even as I tried to justify myself, I knew the truth. I had been living a double life. The applause of men had mattered more than the approval of God. As I trembled, still chained at the edge of hell, another force began to stir. A light, small at first, pierced through the darkness. It grew brighter, stronger, until it overshadowed the flames. The shadows shrieked and recoiled, and then in that blinding radiance, I saw a hand stretched out toward me. The voice spoke again, this time with both power and mercy. "I am giving you one more chance, not because you deserve it, but because of my mercy. Go back, warn them, and live what you preach." I wept, not with tears, but with my soul. The light enveloped me, pulling me away from the pit. The screams of hell faded, the stench of fire lifted, and suddenly, I was being carried upward. The weight of chains broke, and I felt free, but terrified, trembling, undone. The next thing I knew, I was hovering above my own body in the church sanctuary. My wife was holding my hand, tears streaming down her face. The ushers were frantic, some praying, others panicking. A paramedic was checking for my pulse, shaking his head. They were about to declare me gone, but in that instant, the light that carried me spoke once more. "Your life is not your own. Use the breath I give you to tell the truth." Then, like being slammed back into a prison cell, I was thrust into my body. My chest convulsed. I gasped violently as air filled my lungs again. The congregation screamed, not in fear, but in awe. Some cried, some shouted praises. I opened my eyes, weak and trembling, but alive. And though I lived, I knew I had seen something that I could never ever forget. As I lay weak on that stretcher, my body trembling from the shock of returning, one truth settled deep into my spirit. I had been given mercy, not a reward. I had been spared, not because of my righteousness, but because of God's grace. In those moments after I came back, images of what I had seen replayed in my mind, like thunder, the flames, the voices, the chains, the words of judgment. You preached my word, but you did not live it. I could not escape them. They were carved into my very being. And then, the revelation hit me. I realized that hell is not just for atheists, or the wicked who openly reject God. Hell waits for hypocrites, for those who wear his name but refuse his lordship. I had preached hundreds of sermons warning others, yet my own soul was dangling over the fire. I had fooled my church, fooled my family, even fooled myself. But I had not fooled God. The revelation was painfully clear. God will not be mocked. You can wear the robe, hold the Bible, and speak his name, but if your heart is unclean, he sees it all. Nothing is hidden from him. As I reflected, I also understood why he sent me back. It was not just to scare me straight. It was to warn others like me, men and women hiding behind titles, hiding behind religion, hiding behind works, while their souls are rotting in secret sin. The same chains that almost dragged me to hell are binding countless others, and many will not be given the second chance I was. I remembered the faces in the flames, the cries of those who had once sat in churches, sung in choirs, even preached sermons. They were not strangers to the gospel. They knew it, but they ignored it, toyed with it, treated grace as permission rather than deliverance. And now, they wept with regret. That was the revelation. Hell is filled not only with those who never heard, but also with those who heard and ignored. But I also saw hope, the hand of light that pulled me back. The voice that said, I am giving you one more chance, was not only for me, it was for everyone who still has breath. It was God's reminder that as long as you are alive, mercy is still within reach. The chains of lust, addiction, lies or pride may be strong, but they are not unbreakable. His power can set you free, if only you will surrender. I understood then why I felt so unworthy to preach before. My sermons had been empty, not because the word lacked power, but because I lacked holiness. I was a vessel clogged with filth, but God was telling me, be clean, be holy, be real. My people don't need performances, they need truth. Lying there I wept uncontrollably. My wife held me, confused but relieved I was alive. My congregation gathered, waiting for an explanation, but how could I explain? How could I put into words the fire, the screams, the overwhelming reality of eternity? I looked into their eyes, and realized that this was not about me anymore. This was about them. It was about every person who sits in a church pew, thinking attendance is enough. Every preacher who thinks charisma can cover sin. Every believer who thinks they have time to repent later. The revelation was this: later does not belong to you. Eternity can begin in a breath, and when it does, masks will not matter, only truth will. So I spoke, not with polished words, but with trembling lips. Church, I died today. I stood at the edge of hell, and I am telling you, sin is real, judgment is real, eternity is real. Don't play with God the way I did. Don't think secret sins are hidden. They will find you out. As I spoke, a hush fell over the congregation. Tears rolled down faces. Some fell on their knees. Others lifted their hands, crying out for mercy. In that moment, I saw the purpose of my second chance, not to restore my reputation, but to awaken the sleeping. And the greatest revelation of all was this: God's mercy is greater than man's sin. I was guilty, unworthy, condemned, but mercy reached down into the flames and pulled me back. And if he could do that for me, he can do it for anyone listening to my voice. That is the truth that changed everything. That judgment is real, but so is grace. Hell is real, but so is heaven. Chains are real, but so is deliverance. And the decision is not for tomorrow, it is for today. When I returned from that encounter, I was not the same man. The pulpit no longer felt like a stage. It became an altar of trembling. where I stood not to impress people but to honor God. My marriage, once strained by my hidden struggles, became a place of honesty and healing. I confessed to my wife, sought accountability, and for the first time in years, I felt the freedom of living without a mask. My ministry also changed. I no longer preach to entertain, to sound eloquent, or to draw crowds. I preach with tears, with urgency, with a fire that comes from knowing what eternity looks like. Every sermon I give now is a warning and an invitation, a warning that hell is real and an invitation that mercy is still available. I wake up each morning with gratitude for the breath in my lungs. I know I do not deserve this second chance, but I will use it to point others to Christ. The lesson is simple yet eternal. Secret sin will destroy, but surrender brings life. I was given a glimpse of judgment so I could testify of grace. I stood on the edge of hell and was pulled back by mercy. But mercy is not promised tomorrow. It is only offered today. You may hide your sin from your pastor, from your family, even from yourself, but you cannot hide it from God. The question is not whether He sees your heart. He already does. The real question is this: when your final moment comes, will you stand before Him clean and forgiven, or chained and condemned? The choice is yours, but the time to choose is now. Before you scroll away, remember this: every time you share this message, you are not just clicking a button, you are becoming a worker of God's mercy. You are carrying this warning and this hope to someone who may be standing on the same edge I once stood on. Don't be just a churchgoer who hears and leaves unchanged. Be a vessel of mercy. Share this testimony and let God use you to pull another soul back from the flames.